Hey everyone, I hope you're well. Today I want to talk about the potential buffs and nerfs coming to Season 5, and I want to rank every single thing in the game, so every legend and every weapon, and I will essentially be giving a % chance on whether that item will be buffed or nerfed. Now, this is kind of going to be a more free-form video, a lot more conversational, so I'm going to jump into it. Leave your comments below because I'm really curious. Obviously, a lot of this is based on the comments we've seen from devs and the overall community response on different legends. So we'll start with the legends from worst to best, and then we will take a look at the weapons. So you can consider this video sort of an all-in-one ranking for all of the items after the most recent buffs, a look at what we might see in terms of buffs and nerfs in Season 5, and just an overall look at the meta. So we'll start with Mirage. Now, Mirage's likelihood of a buff is 100%. It's been confirmed Mirage is getting a buff in Season 5. Finally, I don't really know what it will be, but there's obviously talk about the dance party we saw in Dummy's Big Day being featured. There's talk of Mirage getting a big rework, and honestly, I would really love to see some reworks happening to Mirage. I feel like Mirage is a character that has a really interesting kit that fails to provide much value for the team. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. I can't wait to see if Mirage could potentially be like, not necessarily a high pick legend or like a top tier legend, but you know, somewhere in the middle. Most legends are now balanced where they're pretty much like competing with each other. There's a few examples which are really good, like Wraith and Gibby, but you know, Mirage isn't quite in that middle bunch with the rest yet. Next, we have Octane. Now, Octane to me is the second worst legend now, and I think there's a 50% chance Octane will get a buff in Season 5 because it's been a long time. Octane hasn't really had any love. Now, what's kind of skewing things against Octane's favor is there's a lot of Octane players that play absolutely crazy and do well with him. He's not necessarily a bad legend. If you play super aggressive with him, you can do well. It's just there are other legends that do it better. Cough, cough, Pathfinder. But essentially, I'd like to see Octane get a better passive. I think that Octane's current passive is really good and it should stay, but it should sort of be like tied into his tactical. So Octane keeps his passive, but he gets a new one, and then maybe some love to his ultimate too. Now, ultimately, they haven't really talked about an actual buff for Octane, but they have mentioned that they are aware Octane's hitbox is broken. Now, that's another big problem with Octane, and if that gets fixed, that in itself is pretty much a big buff, really. So I'd love to see that. And I'd love to see some Octane buffs, but we don't know if it will happen yet. Definitely, he needs a bit of love to push him up a little bit. Now, this was hard, but I'd say the third worst legend is Caustic. And here's the thing, right? Mirage and Octane, okay, it's like Mirage is right at the bottom of the ladder. Octane is like a few steps higher. And then all the rest of the legends are probably like 20 steps higher up the ladder. Like, there's such a big difference between, say, Mirage and Caustic. So putting Caustic in third worst seems really bad. But actually, there's such a big difference between those. So that's why tiers are quite good. So you definitely want to watch my tier list video if you haven't yet. So essentially, I'd say Caustic's pretty decent. He's pretty great. Really, there's not much that needs to be done to him. So I think the likelihood of him getting a buff is quite low. I'd say 20% because he may get a small quality of life change. It may happen, but I do think it's very unlikely considering he's pretty competitive now. I mean, some people even rocking him in competitive tournaments and doing well with him. So that is, you know, a good side. So I think Caustic is unlikely to get a buff, but if anything, maybe we'll get some changes to the way the gas works when teammates go through it. That already got changed a little bit recently, but it definitely needs just a little bit more tweaking, I think, and then Caustic will be perfect. Next, we have Lifeline. Now, Lifeline recently got an extra passive ability, but I think that the loot pool on that is pretty poor. I also think Lifeline's ultimate is pretty like lackluster. You don't really want to use it that often. You get high level armor pretty quickly thanks to all the other ways to get armor in the game now. So yeah, Lifeline needs a bit of love. I hope that they increase the loot pool for the secret compartments on the loot bins. I hope that they increase the Lifeline drop loot pool as well, make it better. I think there's a likelihood Lifeline will get a buff of about 40% because she definitely needs it. She's on the lower tier of things now, in my opinion. She's still great. She's still a great fighter. Her revive is really, really useful for the team. So she's never going to be low tier, but she could do with a little nudge up. So I think the chance that her, not necessarily getting a buff, but her getting a positive tweak will, a 40% chance. That's my guess. I think that she definitely deserves it. Next we have Bloodhound. Now I think there's a 30% chance Bloodhound will get a buff simply because they've been giving Bloodhound a lot of love recently, and it's clear to me that they want to make sure Bloodhound is amongst the rest, right? So I think that there's the chance, a small chance, that Bloodhound may get a small tweak just to push Bloodhound up a tiny bit more. Now, Bloodhound as a character now is already so much better than they were in Season 1. Bloodhound's gone through a lot of incremental small changes, and to me, they are a very fun legend to play. I think that, for example, a small buff like reducing the cooldown on Bloodhound's tactical would be more than enough, and I'd love to see that. So something like that would be great. I hope it comes. Bloodhound's already very strong, but that cooldown is a little long. Next we have Crypto. Now Crypto is a very good legend if you can master it and you're able to communicate well with your team. Now the thing is, I think Crypto is likely to get a buff because Crypto's play rate is pretty bad. I'm pretty sure Crypto's win rate is pretty bad because most people aren't really coordinating that well with Crypto's kit, which really lets him down. So I think Crypto's likelihood of a buff is 70%. Now Crypto's had some very small tweaks and changes. One of the biggest ones was when the drone health was increased. That was a really great change, but I think the devs know that Crypto sort of needs a bit more attention, and I think that they will boost him up a little bit. I'm not sure what they would do. I'm hoping they would add some kind of new passive to Crypto, because Crypto's passive is basically part of his tactical. Many people didn't even realize, but the passive is literally just to outline enemies that the tactical spots, but that doesn't make sense. Next we have Revenant. Now Revenant got a huge buff, so I don't think Revenant will get another buff in Season 5. I think he's in a great spot now. I think that if he were to get a change, it would be to his hitbox, but I'm not sure whether that will happen or not. I think the chance of a buff is like 10%. I don't think it's going to happen. Revenant's really good. He's not like top tier, but he definitely can compete. I would like to see maybe the ultimate improved a little bit, but I think that they'll probably want to wait to see the data a bit more before they buff Revenant again. That's my kind of thinking here, but we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. So next we have Watson, and Watson, I put her below some of the other legends in this list because Watson is a legend that, while she is really, really, really good in high level play, tournaments and Predator lobbies, for example, her value in casual play is a bit less. She doesn't have much mobility, well, she has none. So, she's not the absolute best because of that reason. There's that disparity between high level play and sort of casual, just having fun, going crazy in lobbies. So yeah, either way, she's still great. And if anything, she'll get a nerf, I think. Maybe she would have a nerf to the way her ultimate works, but once again, I don't know if that would happen. I think it's a very low chance. She's already been nerfed, so 10% chance of Watson getting a nerf if anything happens to her at all. Now we have Bangalore. I think Bangalore is a great legend. Once again, she's not the best legend, but she has that great kit that's useful in casual play and also high level ranked. Her positioning power is very strong thanks to her ultimate. I think a lot of people don't really realize how powerful it is, and I don't think Bangalore will get touched because she's one of those legends that's played by a wide range of skill levels, and you can play her well no matter what, so she's going to have a relatively high win rate no matter what. So I think by that logic, the developers aren't going to buff her, but if anything, maybe there's like a 10% chance she'll get a buff. I don't know what they'll do, maybe make her ultimate change a little bit, but yeah, very unlikely. Next, we have Pathfinder. Now, Pathfinder is a very strong recon legend, a very strong mobility-based legend, who also has a zipline, which is good for the team. His hitbox is also a nightmare. Have you seen a crouch spamming Pathfinder? I mean, it's not easy to hit. I don't know if this is true, but a lot of people are saying that they may change up the way the classes work. If that did happen, then all recon legends may get access to the survey beacon, which would mean by default Pathfinder would need a new passive. So in that way, it's sort of like a buff and a nerf at the same time. Pathfinder will get a new passive, which would buff him, but then other people will get access to his exclusive passive, which would be a nerf. I'd say that's like a 20% chance that would happen. I think that the classes don't really, it's a bit unclear what they actually mean. So seeing some class-related passives could be a strong idea, but whether they actually do it and implement that or not, I'm not sure. 20%, I'd say. Next, we have Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar is the second best legend in the game, just before Wraith. Gibraltar is very strong. He is an absolute tank. The ultimate's really great. The dome shield is so powerful. There's so much great about Gibraltar. They even had to nerf his arm shield a little bit because it was so strong. So I think Gibraltar's in a good place now. He is very strong, but I don't think they want to nerf him again. They've already built him up so much. I think he's in a great place. If they nerf him more, people are just going to stop playing him. He cannot be more squishy because he's so big. He's got to stay strong and sturdy like that. Yeah, 10% chance of a nerf, I'd say. Next, we have Wraith. Now, Wraith is the best legend. One of the reasons why is because she's about twice the size of a Phoenix kit. She is very, very small, so that's always going to go in her favor. Her tactical is very, very good, and even after the nerf to the way her ultimate and tactical work combined, she can still use her ultimate to get her team out of dangerous situations. She's a really good legend all around. She always will be. So I don't know. I'm really hoping that they don't touch Wraith again, but time will tell over and over that Wraith does get these little picks at her. She gets these little tiny nerfs that just keep tricking her down a little bit. And I think they just need to stop it because Wraith is still going to be strong, even if her abilities do nothing because of her hitbox. So, yeah, I think that they need to leave Wraith alone. So, hopefully they have that same kind of thinking. They should boost up the other legends instead. But if that doesn't happen, I don't know, maybe Wraith's tactical cooldown will be increased. That would be a big nerf, honestly. I don't know. Hopefully not. I'd say about a 20% chance of a nerf. It's more likely than a Gibby nerf at this point, but hopefully it doesn't happen. So that's the legends. Next, we will be talking about the weapons. Now, there's a lot to talk about the weapons in general. I think as the season evolves, you kind of learn more about each weapon. So my top list here is definitely going to be different to the list at the start of the season. Once again, this is all opinion based, but put a lot of hours into the game. So it's opinions stuffed with facts, I'd say. So at the start, we have the P2020, the worst weapon in the game. Now, if you get a hammer point on that, it's very good. But I don't think it's going to get a buff. It's designed to be that terrible weapon at the start of the game that you get. And, I would really hope that... Okay, here's the trouble. I would be happy if they removed the P2020 forever, but they can't. They have skins for it, so they got to implement it into the game somehow. And this battle armor mode kind of showcases that, maybe you could spawn with a P2020. And I honestly think it's a negative effect. It has a negative effect on the game because when you spawn before the P2020, it was kind of like you could have a chance at punching people out because people aren't going to be spam firing you with 500 P2020s at the start of a game. But now that people do have P2020s, if you don't get a weapon at the start of a game, it's even worse because not only do you not have a good weapon, but everybody that sees you has a chance to poke shots at you, So I honestly think it's not a good idea to spawn it with drop. So I guess it just has to stay in the loot pool as a bad weapon that can be good if you find a hammer point, and in that case I think there's a very small chance it gets a buff, maybe like a 5% chance. It's always designed to be that terrible weapon. Moving on, second worst, we have the RE45. Now, the RE45 is once again a low tier weapon, but it's not that bad. I mean, you can pull things off of it. I don't see why the developers would want to boost it up, but I mean, there's the potential. It's already had a hop up in the past. It's already had some love in the past, so I think that there's, maybe like a 20% chance it gets a tiny bit of a buff. Maybe they'd increase the mag size or the DPS a tiny bit. I know in the past they have given it a tiny bit of love to try and push it a little bit closer to the R99. You want it to be able to compete with an R99 if you can hit your shots. It's obviously not going to be as great, but it needs to be able to like be there. You know, it can't be a terrible weapon. So now the alternator, it has a higher damage per shot than the R99, but a lower DPS, which means it's in this weird place where it can actually be used to kind of poke people at long range a little bit. And we saw what happens when it gets too powerful and the disruptor goes on it, and it's basically like a sniper that just cracks shields from long range. I don't think they would buff that. I think it's in a good place. It's one of those low tier weapons that's useful in a pinch, but you'll be kind of using it as an attachment holder until you can get a better weapon. Next we have the Mozambique. Now this is another weapon that's kind of trash tier, but when you get a hammer point on it, it does damage. But I honestly feel like the Mozambique without a hammer point can be okay in a pinch. You know, you aim down sights and you can get up to 45 damage per shot. It's okay. It's a terrible weapon. I don't think it will get a buff, but you know, you never say never, so 10% chance it will get a buff. Unlikely, but possible. Next we have the Spitfire. Now the Spitfire is a weird weapon. The DPS is really low, but the fact you have such a large magazine means you can just keep spraying and spraying and spraying and spraying, and that actually has some value to it, strangely enough, especially if you're trying to hit targets long range or you're trying to mow through a squad. It has some use cases, and I don't know, some people absolutely despise it. I don't think it's as bad as some people think. It's definitely not as good as some people think. It's like a mid-range weapon. I think it's in a great spot for what it's meant to be. Likelihood of a buff is very small, 10% chance. Next we have the Charge Rifle, the first sniper in this list. Now the Charge Rifle was very strong, it got nerfed 2 times, and now it's still a fairly decent weapon in the sense that, you know, hit scan is always great, but the magazine size is a big down factor. The sniper ammo stack is a big downside too. It just leaves the Charge Rifle in a weird place. I think that there's a decent chance snipers may get some love in King's Canyon, or Season 5 rather, because they obviously wanted to try and add more long-range meta in Season 4, and it backfired massively with the ammo change. So yeah, I think snipers in general may get a buff. I'm not sure which ones, but perhaps just the whole genre of weapons. So I'm going to say there's a 30% chance for the Charge Rifle. Next we have the Longbow. Now the Longbow is sort of that weapon that is useful a little bit more aggressively than the Charge Rifle or any other snipers. It has a very slow bullet velocity, which sucks big time. It basically means that hitting long range shots is really hard. I actually feel like it's harder to hit long range shots on a longbow than it is a wingman. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that, but there is definitely truth that the bullet velocity on the Sentinel, Triple Take and Charge Rifle is so much better than the longbow. The longbow needs to have faster bullet velocity, but I mean, maybe it's designed to be a close range engagement tool. It's in a weird place, honestly, the longbow, because the wingman can do anything the longbow can at that kind of engagement distance. So yeah, the longbow needs a bit of separate love, but once again, all snipers need a bit of boosting, I'd say, so a 30% chance of a buff for the longbow. Next we have the Triple Take. Now the Triple Take is actually pretty decent. I mean, having a really fast travel time, bullet travel time, is very beneficial. Even if you're only hitting like 20s or something because you don't have a choke, it's still, you know, you can get lucky with it. Up close is pretty good too. I do like the Triple Take. I think that it's a little bit more versatile than the longbow, simply because of the way the weapon works, both whilst aiming down sights and hip firing as well. So yeah, I don't know if the Triple Take will get any individual love, but simply because I think snipers will, like I said. Yeah, 30% chance the Triple Take gets a buff too. And then we have the Sentinel. Now, the Sentinel is weird. The disruptor feature is basically not even used anymore. Now that they've buffed the base damage, doing the disruptor, like wasting a shield battery, just doesn't make much sense. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that weapon. It definitely needs some adjustments, let's say. I'm not sure what they will do, but perhaps they will buff the way the disruptor charge works. Maybe they'll change it to a shield cell and just reduce the damage a little bit. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll remove that feature completely and just buff the base damage. Now that would be a great buff. So I'm not really sure what to call it, but I think a likelihood of a change to the Sentinel is definitely a little higher than the other snipers. So we'll say a 40% chance of a change, whether it will be a buff or a nerf or a combined function of the two. Yeah, something like that. Next, we have the EVA-8, the full auto shotgun that actually does a lot of damage and it fires very fast, especially if you have a purple bolt. I don't think this will get a buff or a nerf. If anything, it will get a nerf. Maybe the double tap trigger will be removed. In that case, yeah, that would make sense. That's kind of a nerf, I suppose. But EVA-8, it's a good weapon. Nothing really needs to change to it. But once again, I wouldn't be surprised if they remove the hop-ups from Season 4 and add some new ones. Like, that wouldn't surprise me. So we'll have to wait and see about that one. Next, we have the Scout. Now, the Scout has had a lot of nerfs recently. I think it's still a pretty strong weapon. I don't know. I think that they're still not happy with the way the Scout's performing. So I think a likelihood of a change, whether it's a buff or a nerf or just a little adjustment of the stats, it's usually a combination of the two, right? You get like an increased bullet velocity, but the fire rate is reduced or something like that, right? So I'd say there's a 20% chance of a nerf. And once again, the double tap trigger, is it really used that much these days? I just don't see the value in it. So maybe that'll be dropped completely. I don't know. Next we have the Havoc, a very strong weapon, even with the charge up time. Now, it's been confirmed the Havoc will be getting a nerf. I mean, I know the recoil is very big, but it's simply just straight up, so it's very easy to control. Maybe they will change the way the recoil works. Maybe they'll just reduce the damage. I don't know, but a nerf is definitely coming. Makes sense. Like, the thing is with the Havoc is, yes, if you can fire first, you probably are going to win your fight. But if you don't fire first, then you're probably going to lose it. So I'm not sure what they'll do with that to balance it, but enough's coming. Next we have the Hemlock. Now, I feel like the Hemlock is in a good state now. I think it's in a great place. I believe that they don't really need to do anything to it. It's a strong weapon. It's not perfect because it doesn't have full auto, but you do have that added benefit of that single fire spam, which is just so strong, and the burst can be pretty good in some situations too. I don't think it will get enough for a buff, so we'll say 10% on either one. Next we have the R301. Now, once again, this is a weapon that is a formidable choice. It's very versatile. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still very, very good. Very versatile at all distances. Once again, likelihood of a nerf, 10%. 10%. Not very likely. Flatline is next. Now, the Flatline is also very strong. I don't think that will get nerfed either. I think these weapons, the assault rifles, Hemlock, R301, Flatline at least, are in good places, and I don't think they'll change. I mean, maybe there's a small chance they'll remove the anvil receiver, and in that case, yeah, I mean, that's a small nerf, I suppose. So likelihood of a nerf, 10% as well. Next, we have the Peacekeeper. The Peacekeeper has been nerfed and nerfed and buffed and nerfed and buffed and nerfed since the beginning of time, and honestly, it's so strong still. I mean, when you have a high damage weapon that can do up to 150 damage per shot, you know, it's going to be dangerous in the right hands. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a nerf. I don't think there's going to be as much of a chance of a nerf in this season as there is in past seasons, because it's already been nerfed quite a lot now. I'd say a small nerf could simply be to reduce the ammo count from 5 to 4, but I'd say like a 20% chance of a nerf. Next, we have the R99. Now, the R99 has also been nerfed a bit, quite a lot recently, I guess. It's still one of the most used weapons in the game. I think people are always using R99 because of the high DPS, so could there be a nerf? Maybe. Maybe they want to bring it down a little bit so people are feeling more adventurous with the other weapons. But if they do that, then it's kind of like, if you keep nerfing the top tier weapons, then the time to kill is just being brought down to the low tier weapons, which is a bit strange. So I don't know. I think the chance of a nerf is 30%. I think it's reasonably likely, not too likely, but it'll probably be a very small one if it happens. Maybe like an ammo count change again. Next we have the Wingman. Now the Wingman's already been nerfed a million times, and it's kind of similar to the R99. It's one of those formidable weapons that's always taken. The thing is with the Wingman is it's basically used as a sniper. It's used to poke damage long range. It's used to spam people. When you have a high damage per shot and a weapon that can reload fast and a weapon you can strafe fast, that power is crazy. So I think if they were to change anything, maybe they would reduce the bullet travel time. Like, that makes sense as a pistol. But we'll see. I don't know. I think there's been nerfed enough, so it's unlikely. Like a 20% chance, maybe. Finally, we have the last 3 weapons, the care package weapons. Now, I'd say the Mastiff and the Kraber are kind of similar. They go hand in hand. They're both strong. They both have different ranges, basically. I don't think they'll get buffed or nerfed. And then we have the Devotion. This is ridiculously strong. It is a powerhouse. You down people so fast with it. I think there's a small chance it'll get nerfed, maybe like a 10%, maybe they'll reduce the damage a tiny bit, because this thing is ridiculously strong. When I get it, people just, oh, they're gonna die, basically. So that's it. That is my ranking for everything, and my thoughts on what may be getting buffed or nerfed. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit of a more conversational one, a bit longer than normal, but yeah, I wanted to make this. I thought it would be fun. Let me know your thoughts on all the items, what you expect to see, what you'd like to see in Season 5 by leaving a comment below. I'll see you there. Cheerio! Thank you so much for watching. If you want more content, I am currently doing a sort of Apex training series in my members area, so it's just $2.99 a month to join, and I'll be adding new videos every week, and you can talk with me and ask me what videos or tips you want me to create, and I'll make videos specially created for the members, so yeah, definitely sign up for that.